Hilchas Evel Perikar Boaser. Mitzvahs Aseshel Devreim Levakar Chelim Ulenachem Avelim Ulehitzi Ames, and to be involved in the Levoyas Ames, Ulehachnas Akala, which is to be involved in bringing the Kala to the Chuppah, where she would be escorted by people, Ulehachnas Akala, and also Ulelavis Orchim, to escort Orchim, V'lasek B'chol Tzorchi Akfura, Losis Ala Kosev, V'leilchel, to walk in front of the mess also, that's part of the Halvoyas Ames, and V'lispeid, V'lachper, V'likber, that's been again the mess, V'chein L'sameach Chosam V'kala, Ulesadam B'chol Tzorcheim, Ve'elohim Gmilas Chasodim Shebegufish Elam Shir, which goes into the Nacham La Mitzvahs Aseshel Devreim, to do all the things of Bikr Chelim, and Nichum Avelim, and Itzoyas Ames, and Achnasas Kala, and Stam, and Alvoyas Orchim, and all the Inyanim which are involved in the mess and in the Avelim, say in the Kvura and say in the Levaya. And Afal Pishakol Mitzvahs Elam Midevreim, which means Kol Advarim Shatereitza Shiyasu Esim L'cha Acherim is a say Esim Ato L'chicha B'teira B'mitzvahs. So B'amas Mitzad V'ahavta L'reacha Kamecha, a person is mechuyev to do all these things L'chura. But nevertheless, the Rambam calls it a mitzvah shel dereim. It's not so clear. L'chura, there's a chiyuv to be menachem avel, there's a chiyuv l'vayis ames. So the Rambam Aruch says that there's a chiyuv not to do all of them. There's a chiyuv mitzad v'after l'reach kumecha. You have to do one of them. Masha'inkin, to do all of them, that's a chiyuv midrabanan. That's a chiyuv midrabanan. You have to understand exactly how does it work. In other words, if there is a mess, to be malav the mess, if the mess needs malavim. So obviously, if the mess doesn't need malavim, so then maybe there's no chiyuv. Masha'inkin, if the mess needs malavim, or it needs the kala needs malavim, so then there's a mitzvah. So is the pshat is that even if it doesn't need it, so there's a mitzvah to go ahead and do it, even if it's not necessarily. I mean, in the case of this Talmud Torah, so Talmud Torah is connected kulam. But if a person is not learning anyways, so does he have a chiyuv to go do something which be'esim is not 100% essential? So you can say minat Torah, there's a chiyuv. Generally, when a person does a mitzvah, so he's being mekayim the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha. But is there a chiyuv to do all these things? Now there's a mitzvah sasei shel derim. You need birur to understand that on one hand it's a mitzvah sasei minat Torah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha, and on the other hand it's called the mitzvah sasei shel devrei. Halacha beis schar halivui merube menakel. This the milava orchim is merube menakel. V'hu achek shechokek Avram Avinu v'derech hachesed shenoag bo. That would be what Avram Avinu instituted. Michael Evri Drochim Umashke Esam, and the ikar was umalava Esam. He would be malava. That would be the ikar that Avram instituted. Ugedei lachnosus orchim mihagbolos miashchina shnema vayar v'inei shleish anoshim. So that's bechlal achnosus orchim is even greater than achnos than kabbalos miashchina. V'livuyam, and to be malav the orchim is even greater than achnosus orchim. So no, achnosus orchim is greater than kabbalos miashchina, and to be malav orchim is even greater than achnosus orchim. Amar chachamim kol she'eni malava ki'ilu shefech dam. So there's someone that's not malava is ki'ilu shefech dam, and that becomes a chiyuv. So the Rambam says that's the choik shechokak Avram Avinu. The chud is a shaila. We have a general rule that you're supposed to do mitzvahs not because of what Avram Avinu instituted, but rather because of Matan Torah, the famous Rambam that the Rambam writes. You don't do milah because Avram instituted milah. You do milah because the Torah tells us about milah. But on the other end, we still say lachnisil bevrisa shel Avram Avinu. So the Rebbe is mas also benegel levoya, that the Rebbe says that the pshat is the musik that a person has this feeling of doing levoya was something, or b'chlal achnos tzarchim was something that Avram Avinu instilled in us. The chiyuv of doing levoya, the chiyuv of doing achnos tzarchim is a chiyuv that we have mitayra meish rabbeinu. But the fact that we have that feeling, that who instilled in us that feeling of doing levoya and doing all the divrei chesed, that's something. That's the choik. So the choik shechok Avram Avinu. It's not the rule that Avram Avinu said. It was the choik she'Avram Avinu chokak. He ingrained in us that feeling to be able to do all the inyanim of chesed, of achnosus orchim and al deras levoya and all the other inyanim of chesed which we inherited from Avram Avinu. The Rebbe discussed the chiddush of levoya also barichos. What's the chiddush of levoya? There's certain things which are considered a basic need. Levoya is showing the person that you're being malava that you're interested in him. In other words, it's not only you're giving him his basic needs, You're showing him an interest that you have an interest in him. Ad kedei kach that you want to be malave him. So that's a feeling. In other words, there's giving a person his needs, the basic needs, and then there's giving the person the feeling that that person should feel that he's very important, and therefore you want to be malave him. So therefore there's a gadol levoya more than everything else. Then the Ram continues kefim levoya. So this chiyuv of levoya is not something which like a lefnim mishuras hadin. It's something which is a chiyuv. Kefim levoya kerechish kefim l'tzedakah. Just like certain people that have money that is a chiyuv to you force them to give tzedakah. So a person that's able to make levoya to the archims kefim levoya. Keder shekefim l'tzedakah ubezno yimasaknu shluchim l'lavis adam ha'ever mimakim l'makim. For the people that are traveling from place to place, there should be people that are memunah from the tzibur to be melave those people. Misatzel b'davar zev, Bezin was misatzel, and they didn't institute that there should be people that are melavim, ma'ilel aleim akosev ki'ilu shafchu damim. Afilu ha'melaves chaveira arba ames be'ir, even in the cities, melavim, at least arba ames, is yeshli schar meruba. He also has a schar meruba. There's shiurim of how much you mechuyev to be melava. But if a person is malava, even arba ames be'ir, so that's like showing the person that you have an interest in him, that you're not only doing something out of obligation, because you're interested in that person. The kamu shira levoya shechayiv adaba. How much the chiyuv levoya is a rav letalmid. When a rav is being melamed this talmid ad ibur shalir. Ibur shalir is when you have a city and it's neget l'gabi hilchas eruvit tchumen, neget the dinam of tchumen. So if you have a city and within 70 in shirayim, 70 amas in shirayim, there's a house, that's considered a extension of the city. That's considered the ibur shalir. So if you have a house within 70 amas in Shiraim and 2/3 over there, so then that's considered extension of the city. So that's called ibur shalir, just like a ishim uberes. So her uber is protruding from her. So al derech zeh, so this is protruding from the city. That's why it's called ibur shalir. So arav letalmid ad ibur shalir, which means 70 amas outside the city. For ish lechavere is more at chum Shabbos, for 2,000 amas outside the city. But Talmud l'Rav is even more ad parsa, which is four mil. Not a mil is 2,000 amas. So that's tchum Shabbos. Over here is 4 times as much. Talmud l'Rav ad parsa. V'imhoy Rabbi Muvik ad sholish parsoy. So these are the shiurim that there's a chiyuv levoya. There's a chiyuv levoya. Halacha dalit. Bikur chelim mitzvah lakel. Everyone is mechuyev to mevaker chelim. Afilu godel mevaker sakotin. Umevakrim pomim harbi bayim. You could visit him more than one time a day. Pomim harbi bayim. V'chol ha-meisiv, whoever is meisiv in bikechelim, harezim meshubach, or b'bulvad, shalei yatriach. You shouldn't be matriach the chayla by being mevakrim. V'chol ha-mevakir is ha-chayla, ki'ilu notel chaylik micholyei vehekel mi'olav. It's like taking away part of his cholyei, and you made it easy on him. V'chol she'enim mevakir is ki'ilu shefach dam. Now the Gemara says that it has to be a ben gilei in order for a bikur chelim to be taking away a chelik micholyei is only if you're a ben gilei. Mashenka, if you're not a ben gilei, that wouldn't apply. The Ram doesn't say anything about ben gilei. The Ram just says a general rule: v'chol mevakar zachela ki'ilu notel chelik micholyei vehekel mi'olaf. Halacha hey, ein mevakar zachela ele miyem shlishi v'hola. It's brought down that it's not a good mazel for the chayla for people to call him a chayla. So Mela, after 3 days, so everyone already knows he's sick, so there's no problem of people knowing that he's a chayla. Mashenka, during the first 3 days, presumably not everybody knows that he's sick, so Mela, he's not really called a chayla. So if you're going to start being mevakrim, so people are going to really find out that he's a chayla, and then people will start calling him a chayla, and that's not good for him. It's not his mazel. So therefore, in mevakrim is a chayla, elamiyem shlishi v'hola, only from the 3rd day onwards. There's an issue if it means after 3 days or on the 3rd day. The Pasha Lashon over here means miyem shlishi v'hola. On the 3rd day, you could be mevakir chayla already. Now, v'im kofetz olav acheli v'hichbit, and therefore people already know that he's a chayla, and the fact that there's a concern what's going to be with him the hemshech. So v'im kofetz olav acheli v'hichbit, there's already the chayla is a difficult chayla, is mevakir neis miyad, so then you can be mevakir him right away. Now that's din number 1, that you're not mevakir normally until 3 days. Mashaykin of hichbit olav achela and kofetz olav achela v'hichbit, so then mevakir neis miyad. Then there's another din, ve'im mevakir le'b'sholos rishenis, le'b'sholos shoyis rishenis bayim, not the first 3 hours of the day. Le'b'sholos achreinis, not the last 3 hours of the day. That's the time where the people that are masasik with the chayla are masasik with the tzrochim, and therefore it's an inconvenience to come be mevakir the chayla the first 3 hours, and it's maybe embarrassing for the chayla, or for the last 3 hours. And also, a person that's suffering from his stomach, or a person suffering with his stomach, so it's also uncomfortable for someone to be mevakir because he's tzarich tzrachov, and also if he's a cheli ayin, so that causes also a problem. People have mevakir chela, so it causes a pain in his head. He's having headaches, problems with his head, so that's also something which bikur chelim could make cause to that the problem should become greater. Visiting them when they have a chelim yayin or aldel zeiv the chelim yayin or michushi yarosh would be difficult for the chelim. Halacha vav hanichnas levakris achela leyeshiv leal gabi mita v'leal gabi safsel v'leal gabi kisei v'leal gabi mokum govea v'leal lemayla mirashesav. Now we learn here that the shechina is lemayla mirashesav shel chela. The shechina, when there's a chayla, so the shechina is l'mayla mirashesav shel chayla. So therefore, a person, when he comes in, he shouldn't be sitting in a place which be keneged hashchina. So if he's going to sit al gabi amita, or he's going to sit al gabi safsel, which is keneged hashchina, or al gabi kisei, also a regular high place, or bevulei al gabi mokum govei, even if it's not, no, first of all, if it's a choshev place to sit, like a mita, or a safsel, or a kisei is a choshev place to sit, and he's sitting on a choshev place keneged hashchina, or he's standing on a mokum govei. He's sitting on a mokum govei, even if it's not a choshev place. It's a mokum govei, which is not a choshev place to sit. It's not a kisei or a safsel or a ramita, but it's a mokum govei. And also v'lei l'mayla mirashesav, not on top of mirashesav, even though it's not mamish govei, but lapel is right on top of his mirashesav, on top of his where his head is. He shouldn't be sitting there. Ela misatif, he should put on his clothes. In other words, he sits there with like derech eretz, with keved reish, misatif, just like we learned in the Dayanim, that they sit because the shechina is over there, so he's misatif. He puts on an ituf, which is an outer beged, like the talis, like our talis godel. It doesn't have to be a talis of tzitzis, but it's an ituf, and v'yeshev lematim mirashesav, and he should sit lematim mirashesav, not lemayla mirashesav, no lematim mirashesav, under his mirashesav, of where his head is. Umevakish olav rachman, he asks rachman from the Eibishter on behalf of the chela and the yetza. And so we're saying again, the Ram doesn't really say why of all these dinim. The pasuk is brought down that the reason is because our shechina is l'mayla mirashesav shel adam, so therefore you shouldn't be sitting l'mayla mirashesav. You shouldn't even be sitting next to the chela in a mokum choshuv. You shouldn't be sitting next to the chela on a mokum gaveya. You should sit dafka lemata mirashesav, and over there you should be yisativ because of kavod hashchina, and also you should be mispchanet for the chela that you're coming to be mavakarim. Halacha zayin, Yiroli, shenechomes avelim kidamis lebikr chelim. To be menachem on Evel comes before bikr chelim. Shenichem avelim is gmilas chasodim imachayim v'mamesim. It's a chesed with the people, with the avelim, that you're being menachem, and also vice versa for the mess, which these people are avelim for. Masha'enkim, when you get bikr chelim is only a chesed with the chayim. Halacha ches, mi shahoy lefon of mes v'kala. Now we're talking about a mess that you have to be makaber. We're not talking about an oval. Mi shahoy lefon of mes v'kala. So the din is miniachas hakala u'misasik ma'mes. V'chein u'eimer leiv chacham beis oval. L'chore that pasuk is talking about a beis oval. The Rambam is bringing it l'gavi the din. If there's a mess and a kala, you should be misasik with the mess, and only then should be misasik with the kala. Now meis v'kala shepogo zev zeh b'derech, and the question is, they're both walking together, and the question is who should go first. So the din is mavin sames mufnei akala. You let the kala go first, and then you let the mess go through. B'hakel even mufnei amelech. If sayef akala, sayef ames meet a melech, so always you let the melech go first, and then either the kala or the mess go afterwards. In other words, if there's a mess and a kala, so the seder's first is the melech, and then there is the kala, and then there is the mess. Halacha tes. Mevatlen talmutera lehitzoas hames ulachnosas kala. You go ahead. The need of hitzoas hames and achnosas kala justifies to be mevatl talmutera. B'medvar mamurim b'shein lekol tzarchi. We're talking about a mess that ain't lekol tzarchi, or a kala which doesn't have tzarcha. So then there's a din of mevatl talmutera. Avol yesh lekol tzarchi. But if there's kol tzarchi and it's not necessary for him to do it, so if he'll go, he'll be mishtativ. It'll be a mitzvah. Abul apel yesh lekol tzarchi ein mevatl. V'hakel she'em misaskim b'kal Torah, but chayav l'sasik imei. Now those people that aren't learning Torah are mechuyev to misasik b'tzas hames. There's a person that's oiseh b'talmud Torah, so then there's a question, if yeshli kol tzorchei, so you're not misasik, and when ain't li kol tzorchei, you are misasik. Masha'ekin, those people that ain't misaskim b'talmud Torah, so they're chayav misasik imei. Halacha yud, mes echad be'ir, is kol b'nei oyir asur masiyas malacha. Besides the fact that everyone is supposed to be misasik b'tzrochav, at that point in time, when there's the mes echad be'ir, kol b'nei oyir asur masiyas malacha, achi yikberu, because everyone has like an obligation to see to it that he should be covered. V'im yeshli mishi yisasik b'tzrochav, so then they're muter basiyas malacha. But v'aistu is b'shas halavaya, they're mechuyev l'avesi. That's the pshat. In other words, a person that's learning Torah, so he only is malav someone that ain't kol tzorchei. Mashenkin, if yesh kol tzorchei, he doesn't have to be malavim. A person that's not limitera, so even if yesh kol tzorchei, he has a chiv l'lavesei. That's din number one. Now there's another din that when there's a mes ba'ir, everyone is asur basiyas malacha. That's a separate din, that everyone is asur basiyas malacha because there's a mes that needs kvura. And if there are people that are misasik, that are achroi, she is asik b'tzrochav, so then they're muter basiyas malacha. But the parshas l'chura b'shas halavaya, they're mechuyev since they're not learning Torah, and even if yesh kol tzorchei, so they are mechuyev l'lavesei. Halacha yudalef talmid chacham shemes afilo hayimei at shishim ribui is mevatnu talmud Torah l'tzios. So we're saying that in yesh kol tzorchei, so then so you're not mevatnu talmud Torah. What's called kol tzorchei? If he has less than 600,000, so it's not yet kol tzorchei. However, if there was already 600,000 by this levaya, so then a mavatl, then it's not mavatl. And those called tzorchei of Talmud Chacham is 600,000. V'im hoya mulamed lacherim is only share. There's no share of 600,000. El mavatl hakel eitzase. Everyone is mechuyev to mavatl eitzase. There's a svara to say. There's a svara that Rav Moshe Feinstein writes in the Gesmeisha. He says that there's a gather of a share, how much he needs l'lavese. And then there's the chiyuv on the gavra that he has to be malav this person that was a person that was malamed lacherim. So mele b'negeya other people, a regular person is yeshli kol tzorchi. How much he has to have? So that could be less than 600,000. It could be 10 people that they would be malavim. So that's already yeshli kol tzorchi. So for people that aren't learning, so they have to be malavim even yeshli kol tzorchi. A person that's learning shouldn't be malavim them even if. Unless Eili Kol Tzorchei. What would be Eili Kol Tzorchei? So a Talmud Chacham, for Talmid Chacham, they less Eili Kol Tzorchei means there's no 600,000. Masha'inkin, if there's 600,000, so it's Yesh Kol Tzorchei, so someone that's Oisik B'Talmud Torah shouldn't be Malamed. Now, a person that was Malamed Lacherim, so even if he had more than 600,000, so you have to be Malamed. Why does he have to be Malamed even if he has more than 600,000? So you could say, because the share is indefinite. But it's on that, Rav Moshe Feinstein said, no, that the share is not indefinite. The pshat is it's a chiyuv on you. So since this person was a malamed acherim, so it's a share on the person to be malavim, even if yesh kol tzorchei, because it's a chiyuv on the Rami, on each person to be malavim, this person that was malav acherim. Halacha yud beis. Koivrin meisei goyim, umenachmen avayleim, so in other words, the ikad din of kvuras meis, al derez bikur chelim, is all a din b'negei yidden. That's a din. It says it's an extension. It said the rabbon in the deiraisa v'hafta l'reacha kamecha. Masha'inkin b'goyim. There's a din that you do it. You kever misayim, you menachem avileim, and mevakrim chileim mitzad dar kishol. Halacha yud gimel. Bati akvaris asur mano. The places that are designated base akvaris is also bano ketzad, ein oichlem behem, vein sheisen behem, vein lesen bam belacha, v'lei keren behem, you're not allowed to read the retainer there, v'lei sheinen behem, kloli shel dover, ein neoisen behem. You're not allowed to have any ishtamshus with this, v'lei neagim mekalas reish, and there's also an isser of kalas reish in a beis hakvaris. Now, be'emes we're going to learn later that a kever, the afara kever, doesn't become asur bano. And therefore, if you're going to take out offer from a kever, so lepel that or from around the kever, that's not asur bano, because lepel something that's mechubel karka doesn't become asur bano. But on the other hand, over here, this din that beis hakvaris, even though we're talking about a place that's mechubel karka, is asur bano. That's a din midrabanon. Midrabanon, the entire beis hakvaris is also bano. You're not allowed to be mishtamish with the Beis HaKvaris. Later on, if you take away the offer from the kaver, from near the kaver, so then that offer, that's what we were saying before, ain't osir bano, because the karka never became osir bano, and lepel now it's no longer part of the Beis HaKvaris. So that's the pshat that we're going to learn from the Hemshech. Let's read it again. But the HaKvaris is asurim bano. Ketzad in echlem bem, in sheisel bem, vein esim bem melocha, velikeren bem, velishenen bem, kololi shel dover ein nesi bem. V'lei negem bem kalas reish. You're not allowed to have any ishtamshus with a Beis HaKvaris, and you're not allowed to also have any kalas reish in a Beis HaKvaris. Halacha Yud Gimel. Yelech odem betech arba'am shel kever, utfilin bereishei, v'sefer Torah bezreya, v'lei yispal sham. Person shouldn't walk next to a kaver within the arba amas of a kaver with tefillin, bereishei, or sefer Torah bezreya, and also shouldn't daven sham. However, berichak arba amas mutter. If he's arba amas far, he's allowed to. Masha'inkin, if he's within arba amas, then he's not allowed to. This is talking about a kaver which is not within Beis HaKvaris. So if it's not within Beis HaKvaris, so then there's a din that if it's rachim midal amas, you're allowed to. Masha'inkin, if in a Beis HaKvaris, so we learned before that the Beis HaKvaris is likeren bem v'lishena bem. You're not allowed to be keren and shena in a Beis HaKvaris. That's also a din midrabanan. Halacha Yudalit. Hamelech atzomis mimokim lamokim is liyitneim bediskia. Diskia is like a leather pouch. V'yanichem al gabi achamer v'yirkev aleim v'pnei sheneg bem minig bizoyin. V'im hoyim misyarim pnei aganov me'pnei alistim mutter. But if it's letzerich, you're not allowed to be noig minig bizoyin. But if it's something which is mipnei aganov nealistim, so then it's mutter. Halacha tezvav aim lefanis hames mikever lekever. To take a mess, to inter a mess from one kever to another kever is osir, and afilu mibozi lemechubet. So once you mekaber the mess, so you should remain in that kever. However, v'imhoye b'tech sadeo. Now the Mishnah teaches v'imhoye b'tech sadeo refers to that if the kever you want to bring him into is b'tech sadeo, so then is mefaneu afilu memechubed lebazi. Now the Achreinim explain the Taz and Alderos, the Chassam Sefer discusses Bo Barichos that says that the pshat is that there's a certain nachas for the mess, the fact that he's buried together with the bnei mishpachas, it's a certain nachas for him, and therefore, so if this, so b'tech sadeo means that it doesn't say clearly, b'tech sadeo means that the new kaver is b'tech sadeo, and there's also a other bnei mishpacha that are covered over there. So then mefaneo, then you're allowed to bring him to that kaver which is b'tech sadeu afilu memechubed lebazi. That's the number one. Then the Rambam continues halacha design then kaver mes al gabi mes, and also v'leish nei mesim keachot because bizoinu. However, the cotton ayetzem imay, if there was a cotton with the imay and there's a cotton which is small enough to be able to be sheikhav him imay, even when he's alive, when they were alive, so he was allowed to be sheikhav him imay. In other words, he's not yet older enough that he's usher to be together with imay. So then nikbar imay, so he can be nikbar together with imay. Halacha Yud Zayin. Afar hakever einei usher bano. In other words, if you take offer from the kever, so that's not usher bano. Why? She'en karka elam neseres. Avol kever abinyan usher bano. Kever abinyan is usher bano, and even if you take over the bricks from the binyan, so lepel, since the lechatchila the bricks were not mechuber lekarka, whatever you made the binyan with wasn't mechuber lekarka. So now when it became mechuber and part of the binyan of the kever, it became osir bano. So even when you take it off, it's also osir bano. So in other words, while the kever is a kever, not you taking out the offer. So there was the din before that we said bati kvaris asur bano, and that includes everything. Masha'inki and the afara kever, when you took the offer away from the kever, so that's eini osir bano. There's a dion. When a person, when they dig a kever, so they take out the offer from the karka, and then they bring the mess into the karka, and then they put the offer back onto the mess. So that offer was really not mechuber lekarka. So that offer wasn't mechuber lekarka. And then when the offer was put back on top of the mess, so you had something which wasn't mechuber lekarka and became now mechuber lekarka, and lechura should become osir bano on a deraisadik level. So some people taka say that offer taka would be osir bano. When it says afara kever in osir bano, it means the offer on the side of the kever. The offer on the side of the kever. So that offer, since it was lechatchila mechuber lekarka, it never became uis mechuber lekarka. So it never became osir min atera. And when you take away that offer, it's mutter bano. It's not so clear in the Rambam. The Pashto Advarim is not like that. Pashto Advarim afara kever means the entire kever, even the offer which is on top of the kever mamash. Halacha Yudches. Haboina kever lemes. Someone builds a kever, he builds a structure over the karka for the mess. So the din is lay nesar. So this binyan, which was miyuchad lemes, is not nesar. Achi yikonas be'ames, unless the mess is in there. Afilu hitul be'nefel, you put a nefel into that binyan, is nesar bano. So this binyan became osir bano. Now nefesh shenase l'shem chai. So again, over here was talking about bein a kever lemes. The person was already a mess. There was already a mess, and now you are bein a kever lemes, so it doesn't become osir bano until you put the mess inside. Now nefesh shenase l'shem chai. You built again a nefesh is again a binyan which you're making on top of a kaver, or as a mokim a kaver, and you made l'shem chai, which means the person that you intend eventually to go into this kaver is divided. He's alive, but you're making it for l'achar me'av esrim. When he'll pass away, that's when he'll have this kaver and this nefesh. And lepel v'rama behames, and lepel you put the mess inside this nefesh. But lepel, when you built it al manas for someone that was chai, and lepel now is rama behames. And v'hesev be'demis echad l'shem hames, and after you put him in when he was a mess, you put in another like row of bricks l'shem mes, or bricks l'shem hames. Is avapi shapina hames, even though lepel you took the mess away, is akil osir banos. Let's go over the dalach hazeh. When a person makes a kever limes, and lepel he made the kever limes, and he put in the mess. So once he put in the mess, so the kever is osir la'ilam. It's not only osir while the mess is inside, it's osir la'ilam. Masha'ingan, if he made a kever l'chai, if he made a kever for a chai, in other words, while the person was still alive, and lepel the person was mess, and you put that person into this kever, so the fact that you made it for him while he was chai, it's irrelevant. Elamai, since he's in the kever, so therefore the kever is asur bano. Once you take the mess out of it, so he's no longer in the kever. So again, when you make something l'shem hames, then you put in the mess, so it becomes asur le'elam. Masha'inkin, if you make something not l'shem hames, or you make something l'shem hachai, and you put in a mess, so while the mess is inside, so it's asur bano, and once you take the mess out, it's not asur bano, it's nachamal. Nefesh shenas l'shem chai. And v'rama be'ames, and you put the mess inside. And then v'hoisev be'doimus echad l'shem hames, and while the mess was inside, you added a doimus l'shem hames. So aval pi shepina hames, and so memelu l'chura, everything else that was made l'shem chai should be mutar bano, but that doimus remains also bano, because that doimus was added to something that was already mess, and it was already l'chatchila designated for the mess. Is aval pi shepina hames akel also bano. However, v'mhikas ateis evet. If you could see where the taste that doimus was, is choylet, so you take away that what you added for the mess, and v'hashar mutter. Shar is mutter. That's talking about if it was nasel shem chai, so the shar is mutter. Once you take out the mess. However, nasel shemes, if you made it l'chatchila shemes, is kiven shehutel be'ames. Once the mess was put in there, neser aval b'ishe pino, even though pino, just like the doimus always remains usher. The doimus always remains usher. It's just that the kever itself, which you made l'shem hachai, was still a chai. So that only becomes usher while the mess is inside. Masha'inkin, once the mess is out, it doesn't become usher. Halacha chof. Haboina kever la'aviv. V'holach v'kovri b'kever acher. So the pale, he put his father in a different kever. Is areza li'ikber meis acher le'ilums. V'hakever hazeh osher ba'no mipnei kvei dovus. That's a different din. There's a special din that a person that builds a kever for his father shouldn't bury someone else there. So if his father was mikbar elsewhere, so he shouldn't bury someone else there. That's din number one. So Isser, to put someone else in a kever which you built l'shem aviv, and then there's another din that you're not allowed to have anah from that kever which you built l'shem aviv, even though the father was never in there. Halacha chaf aleph. Hames osir banoya kuli. The mess itself is osir banoya. Chutz misorei. The sar is not part of the guf, and therefore that's mutter bano. Mashenk and everything else, the body is asur bano. V'chein areinei v'chol tachrichov asur bano. In other words, the iron that you make for the mess, the tachrichim that you put onto the mess, are all asur bano because they become bottled to the mess. In other words, the sar never became bottled. The sar is sar, and that is not part of the mess. That's not considered part of the mess. Mashenk in the iron and the tachrichim which were made l'tzeirich hames, that's asur bano. Avol kelim hamuchonim l'tachrich, they only prepared them to become a tachrichim is l'nesr bano. Nachma filo orag beged lemes. You actually wove a beged in order to put it on the mess. is leineser at sheyiga b'mita hanigberes imei. She'ein azmona, he says, the fact that you prepared it to go into the mess, that's not going to answer it. Only if it actually touched the mita, if it's part of the mita already. So being on the mita, even though the mess is not really wearing it yet, you didn't put it on the mess yet, but once it comes to the mita mess, it becomes asur bano. Halacha chav beis. Kol hakelim shezerkim ala mes ala mita nigberes imei is asurim bano shli yischalfu b'tachrichim. So meikra the dinner. So since they're not really bottled to the mess, you're just throwing kelim on the mess. So they're not really asur bano, but in all other shli yischalfu b'tachrichim, people shouldn't think the tachrichim are also mutter bano, so therefore Chazal said that these kelim are also asur bano. Now hoya avi v'imei mizarkim kelim b'chamosim ala mes. To avi v'imei there was a mess, and lepel they were throwing kelim b'chamosim. Mitzvah ala cherim lahatzilam. There's a mitzvah ala cherim lahatzilam in order to save it. And as the person Nebuch lost his child, and Memele they're throwing kelim ala mes in anger b'chamosim. So Mele is a mitzvah on other people atzilam. V'migil the mita nigberes, but lepel if they touch the mita is ein matzil nesa because they become asabana. That's what he said in halacha chav beis that the kelim shezekim al mesel mita, so they become asur bano. Halacha chav daled melamdin sa'adam shalei chablan. He shouldn't be someone that destroys things. V'liyafsid hakelim v'yashlichim l'chabola. This idea of throwing kelim and destroying them, even in his pain. That's not something which is proper. Mutav lit neisen laniyam. A person has kelim, and he should take these kelim and instead of destroying them and making them asur bano, he should give them taniyam. Val yashlichem l'rima v'tileh, because by throwing it on the mess, so basically to bury it with the mess, it's l'rima v'tileh. V'chamar bekelim ala mess Evel bebal tashchus. Halacha chafei. Now the din is you're not allowed to be mishtamish with the things that the melech was mishtamish. So you're not allowed to be mishtamish with his sus that he Sherochav olav, you're not allowed to be mishtamish with the egla which was pulling his korein. There's those things that he was mishtamish with, al derech zeh, his clothes, all his kelim. You're not allowed to be, a person is not allowed to be mishtamish with the kelim that a melech was mishtamish. So here the din is say, melech shemes is oikrin sus shoyerechav olav. And they tear out certain veins in the bottom of the foot of the sus, so you shouldn't be able to ride on the sus. And the egla shehoysa mishaches bekarin sheyeshubei, and the calf that was pulling the karin with the wagon that he would sit on is also menashe parsiseh. You would cut off its legs, the bottom of its legs, minhar kuva lamata, from the knee downwards. Mokim sheines nese treifa. You don't want to make it into a treifa. You should have a din of a treifa. But on the other end, you don't want it to be able to be used by anybody. So therefore, as you cut off from the under the akuva, min akuva lamata, over there you cut it off in order for no one to be able to use it. Umeshivin yeshiva al kivre shivas yomim. You put a yeshiva for people who learn Torah on his kever. Over here it says on his kever, it means next to his kever. Berichuk dalaramis for 7 days. Shenama v'kovid osleim b'meisei. What was the kovid? Zeh yeshiva al kivre. That's a melech shemes. V'nosi shemes imavatul yishiyosei yeser al shleishim yem. So we learned before that a chacham shemes, there's a musik of imavatul yishivosei. A nosi shemes, so you're not mevatel his yeshiva more than 30 days. We learn out from Moshe that there was the avelas didn't last for more than 30 days. Melech enosi shemes is yeshlam lisref mitose v'chol klei tashmishi. You're not allowed to use any of his things that he used. So maybe you should burn his bed and v'chol klei tashmishi v'ein bo zedar ki ameri v'lei mishum ashchose shenamar. We have a passage that says b'sholem tomus. And they'll burn things in the same way they burn the things for your ancestors, which means that a melech, once he passes away, so they take and they burn all his klei tashmishi, all his bed and his klei tashmishi, because no one is allowed to use it. This is the end of Hilchas Evel, Perich Rachmana Desaya.